as I now look at the body and I do all the counseling that I do and I interact with you guys, there seems to be a real problem with this. There are some of you that are very disconnected. There are some of you that are very disconnected, but not by choice. Then there are a lot of you, which seems to be a much bigger problem, and the reason I say bigger problem is because being disconnected is more of a problem just for you, okay? Other people don't necessarily suffer from you disconnecting. Now, I'm not saying that if you're close to someone and then they disconnect, that doesn't feel painful. But if I've never known you before and you're someone who's fairly disconnected, I may not notice what I'm missing not having that relationship with you, although I am missing something not having it. So you guys who are disconnected are depriving other people of something because you bring something to the mix. Do not think more highly than you should. If you're going to, as a child, correct your parent, all of us would agree that is wrong. Okay, you see a child try to do that something, and the parent looks at the child like, excuse me? Anybody been there? You know what I'm talking about? Usually a hand movement is fast coming. But yet you do that in your vertical alignment. Because why would the child be in trouble? Because it's a vertical problem, isn't it? They are usurping, undermining, rebelling against, or what word you want to use, that authority that is yours. Okay, I understand you don't agree with me, but you do not get to talk to me that way, you may say to the child. Okay? I know you don't like what I just said, maybe this, that, or the decision I just made, but you do not get to talk to me that way. But when we think more highly, we're elevating ourselves above. It's a usurping phrase. Don't think more highly than you should, because then you are usurping. You're overstepping. That's the phrase that we use often, right? Overstepping. Overstepping the scope of what you're supposed to be doing. And that's why it doesn't anger me. It doesn't offend me. I find it frustratingly humorous how many people want to correct me from not being above me in the vertical. If you're not in the vertical, you have no business trying to correct me. That doesn't mean you can't talk to me about something that you think might be wrong or this or that. That's not the same as correction. Correction is, you need to knock it off, you're wrong, you need to stop, you need to change, you need to do this differently. That's correction. But I want us to understand this verse, because this is really where we get into all kinds of trouble. We overstep, and come on, let's be honest. Does it ever really go well? Seriously. When you overstep, does the other person go, oh, thank you so much for jumping in where you didn't belong? Does that ever happen? If your nose would get bloodied, you keep your nose out of the other people's business more. But you know what happens? They go to bloody your nose, now you're mad at them. Mad at them, you're the one who stuck your nose where it didn't belong. And we wonder how we are going to love each other. How are you going to love each other when we can't understand boundaries? And we can't understand the vertical structure appropriately? Now, some people get real frustrated because they don't understand that's their job. I got a lot of absentee parents, their children running all over the place, and they don't even know where their children are because you don't understand your job. You must know where your children are. Especially when, let's face it, you know if your child is the child that sits quietly and does nothing, or your child is the one that's likely standing on top of furniture, upside down, knocking things on the floor. And then you don't act really surprised when I say, by the way, your child just flipped over 6 chairs and is walking on the furniture, okay? But you should have been the one finding out if your child is doing what you know they're likely to do. I was one, I had one. You know what that's all about, but you have to own that they are your responsibility, not mine, not the shamashim that go around helping to keep things going on. Everything is upside down and inside out. Can we understand that you came from a world and live in a world that everything is inside out and upside down? Amen? And that includes everything about how you see things, how you respond to things, how you picture things, how you interact with people. All of this stuff tends to be done backwards, inside out, and upside down. You're afraid of the people you shouldn't be. You're not afraid of the ones you should be. And by afraid, I mean awe, reverence, respect, etc. You set boundaries where they shouldn't be. You don't see any boundaries where there should be. Everything is messed up. We need a full reset. But only you can choose to reset. And you have to make those choices. We're not going to love each other the right way without doing these things. We're not going to love him the right way without doing these things. We believe we're all part of the body. Yes or no? Yes? All right. You don't all have the same function. So stop acting like you have the same function. You don't, just because you're a member of the body, have my function. I don't have yours. But when you start doing my stuff that's not your stuff to do, now you're going back to verse 3 when you're thinking too highly of yourself. Because it has to do with overstepping function. And that's why if you end up becoming a shamash, you have to understand you're not an elder. If you're an elder, you're not a rabbi. If you're a rabbi, you know, what are you? But look what it says here. The very second one was serving. If serving, in the serving. Do it according to the gift given you. He says, in encouraging, and the way you give encouragement. Wow, encouragement's a gift. Being an encourager. In sharing, do so in sincerity. Then there's one, it says leading, do it with diligence. So there's one authority place right there. In compassion, do it joyfully. Wow. There's other places where it talks about gifts of administration. Because a lot of people want to talk about, well, do you guys operate in the spiritual gifts? It depends on what you mean by that. All gifts come from above. When we see wicked and good, what two things are we really talking about? Shrink from that which is not the way Yahweh designed it to be. He says, instead, I want to make sure that you're focusing on and embracing and clinging to that which is good, which is what Yahweh intended it to be. Now, he intended the vertical structure to be a certain way. He intended the way you would treat someone below your in the structure and someone above a certain way. Guess what? When you don't, it's wicked. It is wicked when a child treats a parent the wrong way. It is wicked when a parent treats a child the wrong way. It is good when a child acts appropriately to a parent, when a parent acts appropriately to a child, because Yahweh tells us what that looks like. When it's functioning as intended, it's good. When it's being used inappropriately and not functioning as intended, it is wicked. Singles, I told you, if you're listening, if you're really listening to everything I just talked about, relationally, everything else, you should know that there would be nothing more foolish than to marry somebody that A, is not in the same belief system you are, and B, is not submitted under the same leader as you are. Because you need to know that when things go sideways, and they will, I'm not trying to wreck you with all your wide-eyed hope. You know, those of you that have never been married. If you've been married before, you already know. But if you've never been married before, you need to know it is not going to be nothing but, smooth sailing and all that stuff. There's going to be lots of bumps and rough waters and everything else. There is absolutely going to be. Two human beings adjusting to each other is rough at times. But if you are under and you come and get counseling on a regular basis together, especially at the beginning before you develop all those bad triggers, it can work a whole lot more smoothly.